So NICO STAUB, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having
And
me, Glenn.
absolutely. And I forgot to do my famous 3-second countdown, but I don't think we need it. It seems like it's just more of a chill show. So, sound editor, supervising sound editor, producer, sound guy. but supervising sound editor
Supervising sound editor, yeah.
anything else on that sort of in the realm of sound?
Supervising sound editor, location sound mixer,
Sound
overall snack lover,
mixer is what I was looking for. Yeah, I did a shitload of sound.
Yeah.
One year I was like the location sound mixer, sound editor, sound designer for long story short, when like the last year at film school for me was it's like your thesis year kind of. It's like all your final year to make like a major film project. And for lack of a better, it's like the thesis film for Towson University anyway in Maryland. And one of my scripts got shot down, and our crew didn't want to do that. And I'm like, I guess I was an overachiever at the time. So I was the sound mix, like the location sound mixer and sound designer, however you want to call it, for all of them of that class of that semester. I did like 5 shorts. I was just like, every week I was on a different set. I was just like,
there's always a sound mixer shortage too.
Yeah, and I was really good at it. I think the semester before that I did like 3 different sound things. So I was so technically versed in sound that next semester I did all that. So I know sound, man. I'm like, I do a lot of even like on my passion projects. I'm the one that's like,
you've lived the dream, you've lived the nightmare.
I've lived the nightmare, yeah, man. So Nico, sound editor, sound designer, sound mixer.
Yes,
tell me a little bit more. Tell me a little bit more about you, about what you do, what you've been up to.
For sure. So on one hand, I'm a freelance sound mixer. I go I'll go on sets. Take my bag. I either take a bag or a cart setup. I usually have I have a hybrid setup, so it's a cart with a bag that just unlatches, prop it on my shoulder, ready to go. And if in case I have sit down interviews, or I have a boom operator, then I can put the bag down, sit down, have a boom operator or a C stand. And so that's on one side of what I do. And then the other side of what I do is I do post-production sound mixing, right? Whereas supervising sound editor comes in. I've been doing that for about 13 years. I started my own company 10 years ago, Celeste Audio.
Hell yeah.
Just a few years ago, I turned it into an incorporated one. I turned it into an S corp. So I'm taking just when I started doing the big steps, along came global situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's the other thing I do, right? So right now I'm at my home studio, adapting and improvising, and it's about to be, how to build a studio in 1 month. This is what you do.
Yep, there it is. All the
paint some walls, build some panels, and pick some colors on Etsy, and there we go.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so those are the main things I do. For a while, I'm also a musician. My background, my origins with sound, I don't think I would have had, I think my origins from sound stemmed from music. So I originated as a musician, started playing music, started learning engineering. I started getting to music production. And for music production, I went to school also, for it. One of my teachers was like, after I graduated, he's like, I run into him in the hallway. He's like, "You speak Spanish?" "Oh, por supuesto." And he's like, "Where are you from?" "Argentina." "No shit." And he's like, "Are you friends with that other Argentinian kid?" "Yeah." Like, right on. Well, you should know, by the way, like, I really enjoyed having you in my class. At this point, we're speaking full on Spanish. And he's like, "Yeah, you should. I just really liked having you in my class. You always asked really good questions. You always engaged really well, and even your questions even challenged me as your teacher and everything. And I really like your approach to everything. I've never thought about doing sound for film." 20-year-old self me, right? Just moved to LA, just moved to America, you know? And he's like, have you ever thought about doing sound for film? I'm like, of course, my whole life. Bullshit, I'd never thought of it. I 20 years of my life, 3 years into doing sound, you know, as you know, a pseudo recreational and academic thing. It never even dawned to me that there is a whole category of people that do sound in film.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, I was like, oh, of course, yeah, someone records all that stuff. So I'm like, yeah, of course. And he's like, great, I got this project, and it's a friend's thesis film, UCLA. He's doing the he was doing I think one of the producing or directing programs they have there. It's like a 6-month extension, UCLA extension. And he told me, he's like, hey, you want to come do this? You're not really gonna, the pay will be symbolic, but you'll learn on the job.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what else am I gonna do? Let's do this, you know. So we turns out we end up driving down to Mexicali, and like the border between Mexicali and Calexico, right? Those border towns. And we get there like around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We get to the director's house, and my teacher, or at the time already my I don't know. Well, I guess he's still my teacher even after graduation at that point.
Like a mentor, right?
A mentor, yeah. Good way to put it. Yeah, thank you. He, you know, we get out and he brings out like 4 rolling Pelican cases, and he's like, "All right, here's the gear. I'm gonna go talk to the director for like an hour. We go to location about an hour and a half. Here's the gear. Learn it.
Figure it out." Yeah.
Yeah, figure it out. So I'm like, all right. Open up all the Pelican cases, you know. I'm like, oh my god, this looks nothing like what I'm used to. Nothing here resembles a console. Nothing here resembles the microphones that I know. You know, okay, let's start with, what do I know? Cables. Okay, good. I don't know half of these other cables. Great. This thing has a screen on it. It has a record button. Okay, this thing probably records. Good. These things have XLR connectors. Good. Microphones. Perfect. Cables connect. Excellent. Recorder. There is a menu. Okay. Excellent. Signal. It works. All right. I think I got something here. You know, I didn't even touch the radio mics, you know, the transmitters and receivers at that point. Guy comes out, he's like, all right, let's go to location. We go to location, you know, we get there at 7 p.m. So first day of a shoot ever is a night shoot. Great intro. Guy's like, all right, you already know how to record. You've taken my class, you know, you've gone to recording school. Look at I'm gonna be the boom operator first. You'll be the mixer. We'll reverse the roles. You know, usually entry level is a boom operator, and then you become a mixer. Since you already know how to record, and you know what you're kind of doing, go into the recorder. I'll boom operate. Look at what I'm doing. You know, make sure we don't go too deep into the red.
Yep.
Like, all right.
Yes. Just don't peek. Just don't peek.
Don't peek, man. And he's like, he tells you like the first lesson, like the first lesson learned was like, dude, you'd rather want to be a little too low than a little too hot, you know. And I'm like, all right, perfect. So, you know, and he does it, and, you know, and he's doing the boom operating. I'm doing it, checking it. We reverse roles, you know, and then I go into be boom operating, and he's mixing, you know, and I'm making all sorts of mistakes. I'm booming way too high, you know, getting into the shot. It's my first time, you know, doing all sorts of things. But, you know, okay, by 4 a.m., I kind of got it locked down.
Yep.
We wrap around 5, and he's like, so how'd you feel? I'm like, you know, it's not too bad. You know, it's like, cool. You know, it's like, you think you can handle like 6-7 days of shooting like this? I'm like, I think I can do so. I think we can do this. He's like, cool. I got to go set up Jamie Foxx's studio for the next week. I'll see you next Friday. See you later. And
God damn.
yeah, and just leaves me basically with a whole unknown crew for a good 7-8 days.
And did you have to mix and boom?
Mix and boom.
God damn.
And it was great. I learned a lot. My first day of shooting solo was like 120 degrees out in the desert, and that was nice. It was a learning experience. But yeah, and we did it. The guy came back, the last day of shooting. We worked together the last day. Had the wrap party. Nice couple of laughs, couple of giggles. Couple of weeks later, hits me up again, and he's like, "Hey, are you interested in have you ever been interested in doing post-production sound?" I'm like, "Sure, yeah. What's going on?" He's like, I'm like, "Sure." He's like, "All right, great. Come fix all the mistakes you made."
Yep, there you go.
And that's when I learned how to do ADR. I learned how to do Foley. I learned how to do all the stuff was by fixing my first film I worked on.
Yeah, I can't count how many times, like, for some reason I didn't hear a lawnmower or a freaking helicopter or something, and then it's just like, I thought everything was good. Nobody takes. No, we're good. I'm good to move on. I'm good to move on, and blah, 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 blah. And then you start listening to it and you're like, what the shit is this? All right, how do I fix it? And then that's when you start Googling, like, how do you get rid of lawnmower, which is on top of audio, dialogue.
On top of the dialogue. And it's competing. It's like,
keep dialogue and like, get rid of this lawnmower. Oh, there's this filter. There's that filter. And like, start winging it, man. It was nightmarish, man. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. And that's, it's a thing, right? Because like, it's especially when you're first breaking into audio, it's a little hard, or not hard, but it's almost, it doesn't seem, there's a switch that you flip at one point where it's just like, lawnmowers, traffic, all these things are part of our reality. They're part of things they're so normal to us that we don't, we don't take them into consideration. It's like, oh, we don't think like, oh, that was a car that just passed. Oh, that was another car that just passed. Oh, that was a plane just flew by. And it's like, we don't make these notices. These are so normal to us. Birds chirping that we don't stop to think about them, and when you're on set and you're recording, it's easy to be like, oh, whatever, just a little bird in the background. But then you're in post-production, it's like, dude, what are all these birds doing to my dialogue?
Yeah.
What are all these cars doing to all this thing? None of this works, because by the time you cut to another scene, or you go into something else, all of a sudden there's these contrasts of your background sound, and so it's crazy how nature becomes unnatural.
Yep.
And it's and the funniest thing is that having worked on both sides, right, on location sound, post-production sound, it's on location sound, your job is to like record clear dialogue, as clear as possible, and then you get to post-production sound, it's like, okay, now you got that clear dialogue and you got to embellish it as much as possible.
Yeah.
Right. And you look at all these movies, or any movies, shows, you see all these scenes, people are talking, but really the only thing they actually recorded was the dialogue, all the light city hum, the traffic sounds and the birds and little things that go on in that dog that barked twice, that everything was added.
That was added, yeah.
And everything was added. Only the dialogue was captured on set, assuming they were able to capture it okay and they didn't have to ADR it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like a great couple of years that I was in sound, and somehow I went from sound to ADing, and then I started getting more into that. But it's always like all the little logistics as far as sound and location and lighting for the DP, because I've shot a whole bunch of stuff too, and you there's a whole bunch of projects you just find yourself writing, producing, directing, shooting, and recording and sound and editing and ADRing and sound affecting yourself. So then when you get like to a bigger thing with way more hands and way more departments and more professional, bigger scale things, then it's like at least you have that in your mind, like you've done that. You were like, working on those ultra low budge and kind of made it reasonable, that now that you always have all those logistics in your head, and it's like prep.
Yeah,
prep. Like, how dirty do you want, director, producer, how dirty do you want your shots and how dirty do you want your audio?
Yeah.
do you want this super clean, or are we going to ADR, or do you want the on location dialogue super clean to build it? Or if it's dirty, are you going to have the environment that we're shooting in? Are you going to have that in the scene in post?
Yeah.
You know, so that say we do get, you know, like a car revving over someone's dialogue, we can just build upon that in post so it doesn't stand out. It's natural. Or, you know, little kind of like, it's all the little things like that to kind of build on or focus on avoiding, you know.
Yeah, this is true. I guess you know, there's always, it always seems like, you know, a lot of these things, productions are like, you know, 20% shooting, 80% troubleshooting. And
Yep.
you know, it's I remember, like, you know, one of my first shoots, it was like, you know, we were at a noisy location, you know, and I remember, like, it's like, they were telling me, they're asking me, like, is there anything we can do about the sound? I'm like, I don't know. Do you want to tell all these people to stop driving?
Yeah.
You know, and you don't have permits to do all this stuff. You don't have, you know, it's not like you're working on a $1 million budget feature, you know, multi-million dollar feature, you know, where you can just be like, okay, cool. Like, we have the permits, we have the police enforcement, or, you know, people to like guide traffic or whatever throughout the scenes, or, you know, you don't even have PAs to stop pedestrians. And so it's like, they're like, and they're, remember the way their work around it was at times like, cool, we'll just, you know, let's shoot an exterior, let's capture traffic, let's capture a couple of these things, we'll do inserts of that, and that will justify the noisy set. I'm like, hey, actually that sounds pretty reasonable.
Yeah, you have to like you have to embrace the environment that you're shooting in and make that the environment that the film and the story takes place.
I agree.
And that alleviates so many issues of, like, you know, you can't tell some guy, you know, down the next block to stop mowing his lawn. I mean, unless you're going to go, hey, if you're going to go throw $200 to this guy, hey, here's $200, mow your lawn tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll leave my lawn half mowed for $200 and I'll mow it tomorrow. You're good with me if I mow it tomorrow? We won't be here tomorrow. Okay. But then you got delayed shooting. You got to shoot again. Go give the guy another $200.
Go get the guy another $200.
Will you leave your lawn mowed, half mowed again for another $200? Yeah. But, you know, a lot of productions might not have that. So are you going to embrace that? Maybe
I gotta go into the lawn mowing business.
You know,
gotta follow productions around.
Follow productions and mow lawns. Yeah,
exactly. Start mowing lawns.
It's like a little scam hustle on the side, right? Yeah, man. Well, how would you say you've been impacted, you know, recently, the last 6 months? And you mentioned you just started your S Corp, your LLC and your S Corp, and then
so it's, you know, it's been interesting. It hasn't been boring, I'll tell you that much. And I'll tell you some more. But so let's rewind to, like, okay, rewind a little bit. I get my S Corp, you know, it's like things are picking up for me. I lived in Germany for about 1.5 years. I call it my lost weekend in Germany. I went there for about 1 year, 1.5 years almost. And I had my business here. I had Celeste Audio going on, and I was always working, you know, I mainly worked in commercial corporate media, some documentaries, stuff like that. I always tend to shy away from narrative, as in like feature work or TV media kind of stuff. I mean, more like shows, right? Scripted shows. And so turns out, well, long story short, I moved to Germany. I leave my studio, I leave my business here, you know, kind of thing. I come back 1.5 years later, rebuilding, you know, and as this is happening, I start getting some big corporate clients, you know, I'm doing some, you know, where actually I was about to give you an example and I shouldn't, but I just remember the moment I signed that NDA.
Yeah, that NDA.
Yeah,
that's fine.
But it was like, oh, these are some pretty heavy emails that are going on right now, you know, and You know, we're having some serious conferences right now with some time zones, you know, and some big responsibilities, you know, being thrown out. Like, okay, let's go incorporate it. You know, I get an S corp, protect myself. You know, basically just, you know, okay, cool. If something happens, you know, like the typical S corp movie. Okay, cool. Something happens, come after my business assets, not my personal assets.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that kind of protection, and then obviously all the tax incentives, you know, and all this stuff. You know, we're a highly taxed state, so you know, everything is a write-off. So that happened, you know, and the business starts picking up. It goes really well with all these these couple corporate clients, good accounts, everything. COVID hits, all productions, handbrake, halt. Everyone's rethinking, you know, how they're going to shoot, how they're going to produce. You know, production is like gonna have to reinvent itself. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like,
Yeah.
cool, we got to reinvent the wheel now because no one should be within 6 feet of each other. You know, we have all these restrictions, whether you agree with them or you don't agree with them, they are there. You know, and now, first of all, when there was no restrictions, the only restriction was like, okay, cool, don't do shit. That's the
Right.
main restriction. You know, the first month, you know, everyone's like panicking, like we're thinking that just because we're in the same room together, this is going to create the apocalypse, you know, and there's a lot of ignorance around the subject. No one knows what to do, you know, and uncertainties and all this and that. So fast forward a little bit, there is no work, you know, but all of a sudden, all the creative types are like, even myself included, we're like, hey, I'm a creative type. I have back burner projects. Let's bring those back. So when you add back burner project plus unemployment money equals jobs. Small jobs, very small paid, but they're jobs, they're work, they're
Mm-hmm.
people's blood, sweat, and tears. You know, these are, you know, people that have, you know, really that made a short film or made a record, you know, music. I also mix music, you know, and I get into that world. So I got a lot of that it made some interesting turns for me, because now I got a lot of people doing, this time I did get to work on some short films. I did do that. And this time I got to work on a lot of music, you know, and people were like, hey, I've got this record, you know, I got this EP, I got these singles, songs, whatever, you know, and you know, I really want to take them to the next level. I hear you're the guy. I'm like, let's do it.
Yeah.
You know, and there were, I don't know, there was more compensation to it than just the money, I
Mm-hmm.
found.
Yeah.
And I guess the way it impacted me was, on one hand, the I think they're all tied, what I'm about to tell you, but I think the way it impacted me is like, okay, one hand is the turns, right, that I've done, not necessarily turns, but just like other doors that I've opened, you know, within what I do. You know, yes, I've always have lived mixed music. I always have mixed, you know, for shorts and stuff, but it's like, all right, so it take a turn, and things that I don't usually do, which also happens by being receptive to take those turns, right? Or being open to take those turns. A lot of people are like, no, I don't do this, I don't do that. You know, and it's like, all right, that's everyone's call. But in my case, you know, I was like, you know what? When I see someone who's passionate about their project,
Mm-hmm.
who really believes in what they're doing, and is a good leader in their own project, that to me, which the leader part to me is very important, right? Uh, that to me gives me something to believe in,
Yeah.
right? And where the compensation goes beyond the money. There's a monetary compensation, but there's also a soul compensation in a way, right? And whereas like, okay, the fruit of our hard work is rewarding, and and with that a little bit, you know, I think that element really aided in how I've been feeling through this whole quarantine, because a lot of this has been, I feel like a lot of the quarantine has been centered around people's feelings, right? Because like, okay, how do we we're going to be by ourselves for so long. We've, you know, how do we, sorry, I'm going to turn on the AC here. We're going to be by ourselves. Like, how do we handle ourselves, you know, in moments of stress and moments of uncertainty, you know, and moments where we, you know, where we don't know what's going to happen in a week or in 2 weeks. You know, a week into this thing, we thought that maybe, oh my God, anyone can die at any point.
Right.
You know, it's like catastrophe. And, you know, so, well, creativity, art, you know, all these things and expression is what's going to keep us, I think, or part of what's going to keep us mentally sane. You know, and combine that with one of the many manifestations of, in a way, of love, right? And love for the craft, right? And love for our neighbor who's also doing something really creative that we believe in and everything we want to be part of, right? And a little bit of a creative outlet with a little bit of love, you know, makes up for a lot of things going on here. Yeah. And I feel like that has been, it's funny, like that's how one of the parts that it's impacted me the most. The business has impacted, the business turns has also forced me to be like, hey, take a chill pill. You know, not everything has to be about the business all the time. And you don't have to focus on making, you know, getting the big clients all the time, you know, and it's okay to take, you know, take the hit on the job, you know, if it means you're doing something soul nourishing.
Right.
And since then, since this whole thing started, I've always made it a point to, like, always, no matter how buried I am in work on something that is, you know, corporate or, you know, working for the suit or whatever it is, always have soul nourishing projects that I will even say, like, no, don't pay me. Like, I want to do this. I'll deliver, you know, we'll work on a schedule. It's okay. But, like, the importance of having a creative outlet, for me at least, you know, or something that I can be passionate about within the whole stale environment of corporate media.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and it keeps me alive in a way. So that's working on music stuff, working on people's short films, working on my own music even, you know. And so it's been, I guess that's one way it impacted me. The corporate stuff, commercial world, that is still pretty dead. I mean, at least as far as location goes, niet. Right. You know, I've been to one shoot in the last 6 months. One shoot. It was at a museum, and we were shooting content for their reopening, and then things got shut down again. And then as far as, you know, the corporate post-production stuff, I guess not many people are generating the content, you know, because they can't shoot. The ones that are, every now and then I'm getting some things, but all of it seems to be CGI, VFX, you know, none of it I just got my first, like, actor piece, you know, where there's talent on set, you know, and someone actually shot some content, and it was a really cool piece for a camera company that was promoting their new lenses, you know, and it was neat. It felt good to, like, oh, look, there's actors in front of my screen now.
Yeah, man.
That feels nice. It feels good to, like, come back to that. Hey, I can do Foley now, you know, and working on action scenes. Yeah.
So you have been back on set that one time at that museum?
Yes, the one time at the museum about 2.5 months ago.
Okay.
When they teased the reopening, and yeah, and that was about it. Since then, I've gotten a few calls, but there's some production starting to come back up. I got a call the other day to go work on a production, but, you know, it was one of those moments where, like, okay, I have to value my time on this one. I can't just say yes to this one. You know? Yeah. All of a sudden, a feature film during pandemic, an ultra low budget feature film during the pandemic, just something didn't click. You know, and I guess this is where, you know, going back to, like, taking creative projects and taking passion projects every now and then, you know, it's like the one thing about what I think a few people that don't do sound what they don't realize about sound in the film business is that it's one of the few positions on the set that is not creative at all, not technical, and it's not creative at all, purely technical. And it's not one of those things that just, you know, having a reel makes justice to. Because it's not for example, there's a lot of incentives, right, for directors of photography, directors, you know, producers, people that be like, hey, work on my reel, you know, work on my thing, I'll work on your thing, we'll put it in each other's reel, it'd be great, and we'll do this and this and that, you know. It's like, oh, this looks great, this looks sick on all of our reels. It doesn't work that way with sound because, well, A, we don't have any visual piece, any visual stake in it. Sonically, it's going to change as soon as it gets to post-production.
Mm-hmm.
The job of the sound engineer, you know, on the set is 95% technical, and then the other 5% is creative ways of being technical.
Right.
You know, and
Yeah.
so it's a lot of work, it's a lot of brain power, and it's a lot of physical and mental exhaustion after 10, 12, 14-hour days to not have a creative reward come back.
Yeah. Well,
and so I feel like that's something that people sometimes don't see so much, and why it's so hard that's why it's so hard for sound guys to take the hit when it comes to working on set, unless it's their friend or personal favor, or, you know, returning, like, you know, when a client has called you like 10 times, well, the 11th time I'll cut you a deal.
yeah.
Of course, you draw a lot of soil here, so yeah, of course, you know, you scratch my back enough, I'll scratch yours.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, I was able to piece together, you know, from that one semester when I did like 5, 6 different, you know, sound gigs in just one semester. I was able to piece together a reel, but you're right, it's really more the scenes, the visual scenes. Of course, it's got the audio in it, and so you're labeling it sound reel, and then people are listening to it, and I guess most people just see, like, I don't hear anything special, and it's like, that's the point.
That's the point.
That's why you're paying me so much money. Yeah, but it looks like a good film, but how is this a sound reel? It's like, that's the point. It sounds great.
Sound great.
you don't realize that. I guess you're right, because as I was trying to push myself as a sound guy,
yeah,
I had a cinematography reel that I didn't shoot. Right. So it's like, yeah, but I don't hear any crazy stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's the point.
That's the point. It's clear dialogue.
So I guess you're right. And but maybe sound mixing. Well, listen, I mean, at least there's Oscars for what you do.
Yes.
So when you're saying like there's no incentives or something like that, there is that. So. There's what is it? There's sound editing and sound design. I think are 2 different Oscars. And I think
they just clumped a few of the post-production sound design stuff, like sound. Like I think they clumped a bunch of categories together last year or starting this year.
Is there only one sound Oscar now?
I don't quote me on it. You know, but I think there's like 2. I think.
I think there's 2, because I remember So this was I think 4 years ago, but Mad Max Fury Road took all the technical Oscars, all of them. And it was 2 sound Oscars. That's what I remember. That's what still stands out now. So in the last year or 2, they might have mixed those 2 into one. But I remember it was sound editing, sound mixing. No, sound editing and sound design. I think mixing is essentially editing.
Yeah.
So sound editing and then sound design. It got the CGI. I think it got the cinematography. It got it got nominated for just about every category, and I think it won half of them. But I think it won most of the technical stuff, like the sound and the CGI.
It would make sense. I don't watch the Oscars that time. I usually don't. I don't watch the Oscars. It's
I watched that time because Mad Max was nominated for everything, and I've been a fan of that original trilogy. I've been a fan of that original trilogy. I've been a fan of and Fury Road just blew.
Oh, it was
in
awesome.
my opinion, it blew everything out of the park.
They really kept the spirit of the crescending curve of Mad Max insanity. You know, it's like the first one. It's like, ooh, it's got that late 70s feel, you know, and it's kind of okay. It's like a reality shock, you know, like, oh, this could happen. And then like the second one just gets a little more like, oh, this gets plot thickens, you know. Then the third one, it's the freaking 80s, and we got Tina Turner and saxophone solos and
post-apocalypse. 80s,
you know,
yes,
saxophone solos, you got it all, you know, children. You know, and then they brought Fury Road. It was like, oh,
yeah.
The curve just keeps getting.
And Fury Road was just like, you know, like this high diesel, you know, steroid fueled, you know, war boys. I mean, Fury Road was essentially like a remake of, I want to say, all three of them just jam packed into one.
Yeah.
With the hopes of starting a new trilogy. And now I don't, who knows where the hell they're at with it now, but.
You know, a new trilogy would be all right. I'd probably see it. I'd be happy. I'll also be a happy camper if they just left it where it's at.
Yeah. I mean, it's a perfect film standing alone. Yeah.
Did you get to see Bill and Ted 3?
No, but
pretty good.
it's definitely high up on my list. I think that's on demand, so I might have to. I think I got to buy it on Prime or something. But it's on my queue on Prime. But then I look at prices and I'm like, oh, let me hold off. I've got so much other crap to watch and catch up on. Speaking of which, what have you been watching, binge watching, using it as an escape, using, you know, to like study from, or even reading if you've been reading anything?
Okay. Good question. You know, I have a neighbor who's a sci-fi writer, and a good friend of mine too. And my whole life, you know, I grew up with, I have older brothers. As a kid, they got me into Star Wars. I was like, oh, Star Wars. And my whole life being a Star Wars kid, you know, and Star Trek, no, you know. And this guy's like, you know, after we become pretty good friends, and he's like, Nico, he's like, I think you really like Star Trek. I think you really think you should give it a shot. And I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I'll start with the original series. And I started with the original series. I watched the pilot, I'm like, neat. Watched the first episode. I'm like, ooh, all right. It's kind of slow, but I like slow. You know, I'm a big spaghetti Western fan, you know, and so I'm like, all right, this is slow, but it's good. It's philosophical, you know, some good debates, you know. I'm keeping in mind it's the 60s, you know. I'm like, oh, they're talking about they're breaking some boundaries. They're talking about some serious stuff right now. Oh, plot thickens. All right. Season 2. Oh, okay. Season 3. Ooh. Like, you know, and then I was like, well, let's give everyone always raves about the Next Generation.
The Next Generation.
Let's go Next Generation. 7 seasons later, I'm like, wow.
Next Generation.
Oh, what do I do now? Guess I'll go into Deep Space Nine. So I binged like all of that Star Trek.
The entire Star Trek franchise.
Until Deep Space Nine. I kind of put an end to it after Deep Space Nine. You know, and everyone tells me I did it was a good choice.
Yeah. And Star Trek's unique. Star Trek is so unique in its own way, but you know, like as a kid, I was never really into the original series. But then when Next Generation came out, my dad really got me into that. And we watched that, you know, like just about every night. Maybe there was nights I couldn't watch, but like I was into Picard, the Next Generation anyway, really into that. And then, you know, some of the movies came out, and somehow like way after Next Generation, I watched Star Trek the Motion Picture, which was the first movie off of
the original series, the original cast,
and that freaking movie blew me away. I mean, as old as it was, and as late as I was finally getting around to watching it, the effects still stood up.
Magnificent.
And spoiler alert, you've seen the motion picture, right?
Yes.
Star Trek, the motion picture.
I've been, yes, I'm all, yes, I've seen 1, 2, 3, and 4.
The movies.
Yes.
And so V'ger, like they went through all of that to find out that it was one of the Voyager satellites. And I was just like, wow. Like this thing just went around collecting data and building its own universe off of the data it collected.
Yeah.
Spock kind of like let himself get absorbed in it, and like he mind melded with this whole universe, and it just blew me away. I knew about the mind meld, like everybody kind of like you might never ever know what Star Wars, have seen Star Wars, but you know what a Jedi is, you know what a lightsaber is, and you know what the Force, and like using the Force, and so I always knew what a mind meld was. And the Next Generation really like broke boundaries on having a smart sci-fi show, probably smarter than the original, because I just couldn't get it. I just couldn't get into the original. It always just seemed campy 60s, almost like the Batman 60s show, just like kind of like a campy sci-fi show. That's that's what it appeared to me to be like. So I really couldn't get into it. But Next Generation just stood out, like it was like this. And then all the movies, for the most part, I mean, Undiscovered Country, I think Undiscovered Country was the one about releasing your demons. It was Spock's brother, I think, that wanted to know your pain. He wanted to take people's pain away.
I haven't seen that one yet.
So I think it's called Undiscovered Country, and I think it's supposed to be Spock's brother. Yeah, kind of leads this cult, and two great moments, two absolute great moments in this film. I won't spoil too much, but one of them was, I can give some away, but like it was like this space cult, and he wanted to like take people's pain away through a mind meld. And Kirk was like, no, I need my pain. And that was like the moral of the story. Like, you need your pain. If you take my pain away, I'll make the same mistakes again. I won't learn. I won't adapt and overcome and adjust. And just like us during this quarantine, it's like we need. Go ahead.
It's true. I mean, just to add to that point, it's like, sometimes we need the pain so we can know what joy feels like.
Exactly. That too.
It's we understand concepts by relating to their counter in a way, right? To their opposite. We have a deeper understanding of what life means because we understand what it is to be dead. It is the opposite of dead. We understand, what cold and hot means because we understand their opposites.
Yeah.
And it works the same way with our feelings, and our sensations too. It's
I mean, it's one thing to like, reflect on the pain and kind of like find a way to ease us from it, but we always have to know what that is, to learn, to adapt, to enjoy, like you said, to enjoy pleasure, and to enjoy life. We have to know what that pain is. That was a huge moral of the film. That blew me away. There's another great moment, and I won't spoil it because you have yet to watch it. And if you're a Star Trek fan, that's got to be the next Star Trek movie. Undiscovered Country should be the next movie you watch. But it definitely, see, for me, like Star Trek motion picture was great. But Wrath of Khan was only great to those who knew the original Khan series and knew who Khan was, because then that's the huge plot twist of who Khan is and how he had such an vendetta. And then it was what the Genesis Project was like. Khan
when they just dropped him off on that planet.
And so like part 3, 4, and 5 was, I guess, surrounding the Genesis Project, and then or maybe 5 was of the whales, right?
That's my next one. So
so
I left off at 4, I think.
So I think 6
there was like the death of with the return of Spock or something.
was 4. Return of Spock was 4, and then I think 5. So I forget the numbers. 5 and 6. One's with the whales, and one is with Spock's brother and the cult, and like this the space, taking your pain away kind of cult. But I can't remember the numbers. I'm pretty sure it's 6 though. Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country sounds right to me. So, but yeah, but like that's definitely a must watch. For me, it was like, 1, and then 6, and then Generations. Have you seen Star Trek Generations? The movie Star Trek Generations? Yeah. So that's where some different crews kind of mix, and it's a really cool, like it's kind of really cool passing of the torch as far as the movies go. They already did it. They already did it with the shows.
Yeah.
But I think as they were making Star Trek Next Generation, they were making the Kirk and Spock movies.
Oh, they do like a little pass the baton.
And then they do that.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard of that.
And so, yeah, Generations is great. And then there was some of the Next Generation movies they kind of like started to slump.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of those
in quality, but Generations is great too. But yeah, man. I mean, what a franchise. Yeah, what were you gonna say?
I really underestimated Star Trek for too long. And it was like, as soon as I saw the first couple episodes, I was like, what have I been thinking? Like, here's all the philosophical debates I've been looking for. Here's all the, all these little arguments, not in the sense of a quarrel, but an argument as in like, presenting an argument, and showing of arguments of different sides, and it was just really presented some interesting conversation and things to think about, especially, I guess in the original series, that was a little bit of the draw, right? It's like, what have you thought of things a little differently, kind of like in the way Twilight Zone was, it's like, hey, what have you thought of things just a little bit differently? And what if you break that mold for like an hour?
Yeah.
And that's what I really appreciate about Star Trek, is that they really, we're gonna break your mold for an hour. You can go back to your real life, it's all good, but we're gonna break the mold for an hour. If a machine, can feel and can, and can basically, if the only thing that separates a human and a machine is just his composition, but everything else is the same, does that mean he doesn't have the same, rights as a person? And it makes you question these things. I'm like, if the only way I can tell this person is a machine is just by its, by its composition, and if it fools you, for the first half of it, then, it's like, it makes you wonder these things, and
yeah, and the beauty, even with the first series, the Kirk series, they're from an Earth that's so far advanced. They're presenting the audience a future where everything, all our biases and prejudices and indifferences, those have been washed away.
That's archaic.
That's archaic. And what they deal with is they go to planets that are archaic and have societies like we have now. And they're like, you're doing it all wrong, which is really like showing us a mirror, like we're doing it all wrong. The first interracial kiss was on Star Trek.
First interracial kiss. Polemic.
And yeah, I mean, like, but they're presenting all these planets, like, the Klingon planet, the Klingons, as this archaic, violent military industrial complex. Well, isn't that Russia and America and North Korea and China right now? And that's how they're showing that, like, these folks just want to conquer everything. Well, isn't that like a whole number of countries on planet Earth right now? The Federation, the Starfleet Federation is the only, I think, military service, and really it's just to explore. It's like, I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know what the military is like on Earth. I think some of the reboot movies now with Chris Pine, I think they show a little bit of what the security forces are on planet Earth.
I haven't seen any of those, or the J.J. Abrams ones.
The J.J. Abrams are definitely worth the
Kelvin
watch
timeline.
too.
I really want to check out the Kelvin timeline.
Yeah.
But so, since you touched that subject, you were in the military, right, for a while, or you still are?
I'm currently in the DC National Guard. Yeah. So
Awesome.
that's like 1 week in a month, 2 weeks in the summer. It's your traditional guard service. Yeah. So,
Yeah, neat. So
but
how did you were you did that start first before production for you, or did you
no, no.
production
So
first and then
so I graduated with bachelor's in film and TV in '04,
yeah.
but then I enlisted in 2011 because I enlisted at 31 into the National
Yeah.
Guard. So I had to go to basic
Okay.
training and MP school with all these obnoxious kids. But it was a great experience, and
Yeah.
it was just something. It was like something extra to do. I wanted to travel. I wanted to serve, and I wanted to have that under my belt as something that I did for something more than just myself
Huh.
or a brand, or a company. I want to do it,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's been worth it for the most part. I mean, I definitely would say that there are some conflicts I'm having right now, and looking to see what else there is to do.
Hmm.
But I mean, there's been some trying times, and I'd say the past year so far has been a little bit,
A little
blurred,
bumpy.
a little bumpy, yeah, to say the least. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like, it definitely opens my eyes to seeing what the Star Treks and the Star Wars, what their philosophies, what their ideals behind the sci-fi what they're trying to present.
Yeah.
And it's enlightening to have kind of a real world take on that, and then seeing what
Hmm.
what these idealists are trying to present as a possible alternative. And it's like, it makes sense, and I like it. I'm just looking, but as far as that right now, I'm just looking for a big change in November.
Yeah. I feel you.
Since I still currently serve, and even though some people have said some pretty shitty things about the military just recently,
Hmm.
since I still serve, I'm very careful about what I say publicly.
As you should.
But what I can say is I'm definitely excited about a big change in November. It's just
Yeah.
so it's because I think a lot of people have been losing sight of what's important, and they've been selfish, and a lot of times they just speak out of their ass, and they don't know what the hell they're talking about,
It's true.
and they're just disrespectful. I think it's just like,
There's a lot
this
of
is
disrespect on all accounts. I feel like there's a lot of I feel like there's a lot of people that don't. This is a personal feeling, right? And anyone can disagree, but I feel like there's a lot of people that aren't in control of their own emotions, and they have to. It feels like they have the need to, um, sorry, this is one of those moments where like Spanish is making more sense to me than English. But it's feels like a lot of people aren't necessarily in control of their emotions, and they have to. It's almost feels like they have to put something. They have to unleash it and verbally or
oh,
textually,
and now they have
and
this
it's
big
like
stage, and now they have this
yeah,
big podium,
and
and more
just
people are listening to them now.
just because you have ignorance or emotional insecurities, or mental instability, it you know it doesn't validate, you know your aggression,
Hmm.
and just because you feel offended, it doesn't mean you're right.
Right.
So there's a whole sort of things going on where it's just like, I feel like, me personally, I've taken a stance a few months ago where it's just like, well, I'm doing that thing what I usually do every 3 or 4 years, where like, media blackout. I don't want to read the news.
Yeah.
I don't want to really pay attention to social media. I'm like, it's just for me, it's a lot of negative energy. Like, well, I know what my political tendencies are. I know I understand my feelings and my views within a few subjects. Right now, it's a pandemic. Well, I am taking care of myself and my neighbors as much as I can and as responsibly as I can. And unless no groundbreaking news that says, oh, from now on, everyone has to do this regulation, you know, until that comes, well, we all kind of know what we should be doing in theory, right? Allegedly, it's like, okay, go everyone stay safe distant, right? 6 feet apart, you know, whatever, wear a mask, you know, if you're sick, stay home, and just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, listen, I've had a number of guests on here already say, like, just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. You could be a Republican or a Democrat and just don't be a dick about it.
Exactly. You know, it's just like respect your neighbor. That's all it is, man. You know,
Yeah.
You know, we all do it for a little bit, and that's that. I mean, we sacrifice. We do so much. We take so many more measures for so many things that are such less rewarding. You know, that it, when you put it in the scale versus this, I'm like, what's so hard about wearing a mask when you go to the supermarket and back to your
And that
house?
too. Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, what do these things that take maybe like 5 minutes out of your life,
my freedoms,
you know, exactly.
Yeah, but
what are these
compared
things
to what?
compared to, like, you know, dude, how hard, well, think about all the other sacrifices, you know, that don't feel like sacrifices to you that you do in your own life all the time, you know.
Well, I mean, is wearing clothes. You're not allowed to walk around in public butt booty ass naked. But am I depriving you of your freedoms of doing that? You're not allowed to walk around butt booty ass naked. 9 out of 10 restaurants is shoes and shirt. No shoes, no shirt, no service. Oh, that's a violation. No, it's not, man. It's like,
no one's saying that right now.
No one's saying that, but this mask is, and I just had this conversation with my previous guest. The mask is like just like another sock that you have to wear. You got to wear socks and then shoes. Wear a sock. You got to wear an undershirt and then a shirt. Wear the mask. You're gonna wear a hat and sunglasses. Wear a mask.
Yeah,
it's not that hard.
And it's a shame that's become so politically. The mask has become a political symbol, you know, and that is the part that is, you know, the mask is supposed to keep us safe. It's not supposed to be a political symbol. You know, it's, you know, so many of these things, you know, where it's of these precautions and things that have to do with the pandemic, you know, has become political. You know, if you believe in the pandemic, you're one political tendency, and if you don't believe in this pandemic, you're a different political tendency, right? But if you're in this political tendency, you're not really allowed to do what these guys do, right? It seems like, you know, it's like, oh, you're so hardcore Republican and you love your freedoms, and what are you doing wearing that mask?
Listen, I think the problem with a lot of people that are doing that is they got nothing else better to do. They got nothing going on.
True.
You know, you've got a business. You've got nonstop, you know, albums, music videos, and films to work on. I knocked out a whole bunch of projects during this quarantine.
And you got your own. You got Dead on Pictures, you know, and you got your own projects.
I got this podcast. I got a number of things going on. I got a 6-month-old kid. I'm married. A lot of these folks is just like, maybe if I just be a douchebag and make a big deal out of wearing a mask, maybe I'll get some attention because I have absolutely no other skills. I've got no other life. I've got no friends. And it's just, they're just sad sacks that got nothing else going on in life. So I'm gonna make a big stink about a mask. Well, okay. Well, since you have no other life and you don't wear a mask, you might get sick and die. And now what? I mean, it's like,
what? Exactly. And now you're sick. Now you can't see your loved ones.
And now
your loved ones can't come see you. You know, and then you cry about it.
And now it's going to be another sob story because you got it. But a lot of these folks, they're wearing the mask. But they just found this. They found this little thing to like make a big deal out of and get cameras on them or get social media. You know, have a social media platform that's finally getting likes because nobody liked their stupid photos of a flower in their backyard. And so now they're getting the hits on something. They're just attention getters on something that finally they're able to get attention on, but it's stupid. It's just dumb.
It really is.
Well, moving on,
Yeah,
moving on from these. What's next on the agenda for Celeste Audio, for NICO STAUB, for?
Oh man, what's next? Let me see. Let me open my client folder real quick.
Yeah, man, I like the sound of that. Yeah.
Right now, so let's see. Right now, what's currently in my lap
What's
is
currently in the mix, pun
yeah,
intended.
aha, I see what you did. So there's a few things going on right now. I like to always have. I always like to plant many seeds and nourish the things that end up growing. You
Yep.
know, I tend to all of them, but it's all of a sudden like, oh, this one's sprouting, cool. Let's keep watering that one. You know, it took a wild chance. Hey, I guess these seeds don't grow in this weather. You know, but these do. Cool. You know, so there's a few things. One is the music side of things that I was telling you about. All right, so I'm mixing songs at the moment. You know, mixing singles and everything. It's been a good one. The one thing I'm doing right now is I'm developing, not scripting, but developing, a course for. I'm trying to do like a post-production course for people that want to do post-production in Logic, which is very unusual, since people mainly do post-production in Pro Tools.
Right.
If you're anti-Pro Tools, you'll probably go with Cubase or Nuendo or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I have so much experience. Yes, I have a reasonable experience in Pro Tools, but I have a lot of experience using Logic for what it wasn't necessarily ultimately designed for, which is post-production. You know, and I've designed some post-production workflows to the point where I'm like, I'm so much faster in Logic than in Pro Tools now, right? And I feel like there's a few workarounds and quick ways to do things that I feel like it makes a lot of sense. And I feel like there's also, well, a lot of people have Logic, but not enough people have Pro Tools. In the sense that a lot of people that want to do the jump into post-production, they think of like, oh, but now I have to have Pro Tools, and that's an expensive system, and their plugins suck, so I need to get all these other plugins, and I got to do all this. So next thing you know, they're like, you know, they're going to be $2,000 deep into something they don't even know how to use, you know.
Right.
And my goal is to basically make a course where like, hey, you know, this is like an introduction to post-production if you already have, you know, if you already basically know the basics of sound engineering, right? So like, okay, you have experience doing Logic and working on music. You want to get into film stuff? Cool. Here's a 4-day course, basically. You know, just like, okay, cool. This is what post-production flow looks like in Logic, you know, and they can work around all these things. And so I'm just kind of developing a course for that at the moment. And so that's thing number 2. Thing number 3 is, you might find this interesting. So this guy that actually somehow matches my rug very well, and it just completely by accident. So this guy is actually, it's a bed. You know, that's what I use as a couch. But this bed here has, it's like a sound-induced massage bed. So it has what are called tactile transducers underneath it. It's got 2 of them. So if you don't know what a tactile transducer is, essentially it's kind of like, imagine when you have a subwoofer or a speaker, right? You have a cone and it has a magnet, right? And the magnet, you know, with the electromagnetic pulses, you know, shoot through the cone, and that projects the sound, right? So imagine that the tactile transducers are just those magnets, and the bed itself is the cone. So it's like having 2 subwoofers underneath you. So it's basically, it just works through vibrations. It has a crossover at about 120 hertz, you know, so all it is vibrations. And it's configured in a stereo setting, right? So it's like you have one on that side, the other one on that side. So through that, I'm able to design a bunch of experiences that are sound induced. And it also has a headphone input in the back, has Bluetooth capability. So I'm designing experiences. I'm designing immersive sound only experiences, where, you know, so for example,
the bed creates like a physical thing.
It adds a 4th dimension to it, right? It adds or it adds another sense to it, right? It
Uh-huh.
adds the tact into it,
Yeah.
touch, you know. And so, you know, I've been designing experiences where, like, okay, the first experience is you're laying on a beach, and the tide is coming in and it's coming out, you know, and comes back in and it comes back out, you know, and you hear the waves crashing, you hear the tide coming in and out, you know, and you feel these vibrations just go.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I have relative control over where I want these vibrations to be in the up and down spectrum, the same way you would have them on a left and right spectrum kind of thing. So it's been fun designing experiences for that.
Hell yeah.
Along with that came along with other, it's like, hey, like these things I'm experimenting with tones, you know, and things like oscillations. I'm finding, you know, I'm doing basically, the guy that made this bed is a neighbor, you know, and he's a carpenter, and he's like, I made this stuff, but you're the sound guy, you know, I'm a carpenter.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know, I really want you to play with it. Tell me what's good, tell me what's bad, tell me what's, you know, do some R&D for me basically, and I'll give you the bed, you know. And I'm like, that sounds good to me. And so I'm making some R&D and finding some good uses. I made some pointers about it, you know. I think it, in the current state, it probably could use a little better shielding. It could probably use a, you know, a +4 input instead of a -10 input, you know, and things like that. But on the other side, it's like, oh, this is a really it's a novelty to me, right? And it's something that I really love diving into, you know, finding, okay, like how sound can be an experience, like immersive experience, but it can also be therapeutic.
Yeah.
I've been some of the designs that I've made so far for this, you know, I've made 3 or 4 of them that are long format on the 20-minute, 30-minute range.
Oh, nice.
I call that long, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of people might call that short, right? Because sometimes they're expecting an hour or something. But I feel with the 20-minute, the waves one, for example, I've done, you know, I've had a few different people coming in and trying it. And all of them have said something along the lines, when it's done and they get out, it's like, I feel very relaxed. I feel lighter. One of the people that tried it, an old friend of mine who's very introverted, you know, and he came out saying, like, this is, for the first time in a long, I don't know what it is about this bed or what it is about the experience or what it is, you know, but I feel, for the first time in a long time, feel comfortable under my own skin. You know, there's something, you know, that there's a way I feel now that I didn't feel before.
Yeah.
You know, and just seeing the therapeutic potential behind it, on one hand, is, to me, that's soul nourishing, you know. The part, then therapeutic, awesome, love it, great, you know. We can get therapeutic, we can get new agey, you know. You can go the route of having them guided meditations, you know, and you can have all that stuff too if you wanted, you know. But then also just the immersive experience of it, you know, because then I just started designing things that are like, oh cool, like I want to be able to design things that when you close your eyes and you have the audio and the vibrations going on, this alone, where you can paint your own picture, you know. If a picture can be worth 1,000 words, then a sound can be worth 1,000 pictures. Actually, I should use that. You know, but that's how I feel sometimes with this little apparatus here. And,
hell yeah, man. I like it. Yeah.
If you're in LA, I'll have to try it.
That's fantastic. Well, definitely, you know, definitely big marketing, different major business enterprise going on. And I think since your carpenter's right in the same building, and you're not going to be violating any COVID compliance right there. So
exactly. And I see a lot of potential for, like, because it's the concept is simple. It's a tactile transducer under a surface. It's a vibrating machine under a surface. That's the bare bones thing of it. You know, how you manipulate it and how you work them together, right? The right vibrating apparatus with the right surface, with the right sounds, you know, can work a certain way. But the concept can be applied to a floor.
Yeah.
you know, you can have as many transducers as you want. You can have 25 feet by 25 feet of it, you know, and you can have everyone reacting differently, you know, with the right software. You can have cool. It can be your own experience. You can make a vibrating Twister game if you wanted, you know, where every color can be, you know, a different vibration, you know, and whatever. The possibilities of it with the technology, at least, of, you know, tactile transducers, is it kind of opens a whole new gap in immersive media and immersive content.
Oh yeah.
You know, which I guess that's also what is next for me, is bridging that gap with immersive media and immersive content. I would really like to get into more of that format, you know, augmented reality, you know, virtual reality, all the, I don't know, any things that take you into more like a more an immersive experience. That is something I really want to get into somehow, you know. So one project we were talking about a while ago was having, you know, how there's like certain projection domes, you know, and having a floor that is all, you know, vibrating in certain parts, right? So that ends up adding the other dimension of whatever you're experiencing there.
Yeah.
You know, or if you can have, you know, a musical event where you have, I don't know, just inventing something right now, like imagine like a kirtan band, you know, with harmoniums, you know, and dronies, or it can be electronic music, you know, but you have a bunch of these surfaces, or it can be beds, you know, or it can be platforms, or it can be whatever it is, but then that much to accentuate that experience. I feel like there's something to be said there. I feel like this is something like every club could benefit, even having it on their floor, you know, and you can reduce sound pressure levels just by having it, you know, because it's basically a subwoofer, you know. So I feel like it could be beneficial on a lot of sides. I feel like with proper experimenting, I feel like it can be really nutritious to all experiences.
Well, hey, even like, you know, instead of waterboarding, the military could use it and just play dubstep and just get like all the information out they wanted in like within hours, instead of, you know, waterboarding. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I'll talk. I'll tell you everything I know. No more dubstep.
There's no more translucent tactile dubstep. Please, no more.
Yeah,
man. But seriously, on a serious note, with like the immersive media and like the immersive media content and experiences, and just like even like the therapeutic aspects, I think it's just like that's definitely something we need now. We need like this new, and but again, going back to like what the new normal is, and how we've you know, adapted to this. Like we've just discovered like new technology, new hybrid technologies of you know, what this normal is and what the new normal could be, and what this whole hybrid thing. And I've talked about this with previous guests, is like this hybrid, the sliding scale between what the new normal is going to be, and kind of like this hybrid, you know, with me, with a lot of live streaming these corporate events. You know, before the quarantine, I was going to New Orleans and Montreal and Philly and New York, and going to these events. And it was fun because I got to travel, and I would film and live stream these conferences or these seminars. And then it all went virtual. So it was basically all the same people, but on Zoom. And then about a week ago, it was a hybrid. There were people actually in Nashville at the site, and then they would be there at a nice location introducing the keynote speakers or the presenters, who mostly were in Zoom. And it was all like this hybrid on location / virtual live streaming conference. And so that's what I'm finding, what the new normal is going to bring us, is that it's ideas like this. It's like,
definitely,
there's like this physical thing that you have, this bed, this couch, but and the transducer inside the bed. But you can go on an app, and all these experiences that you designed, someone can download, and you can. And so once the design is built and then that's manufactured, that's designed, patented, manufactured.
Mhm.
And then you as a creator still could virtually, remotely telework and build these experiences that someone could easily download on a computer, download on an app, plug into the couch, and they could just NICO STAUB's Beach Part 2 or something, and it's all like, but it's all still kind of hybrid. And that's what this technology is taking us to, is just more of this hybrid, virtual, non-virtual, physical, because still,
yes.
here's another example. Oh no, go ahead.
No, it's really interesting what you're saying. I agree with you, because right now when we're so far apart from each other, right? That I guess now that restrictions are loosening and people are being more comfortable with being around each other and stuff, but there is also a little thing about like, how do we we're human beings, we need to be close to each other. We go in packs, that's kind of like our instinct, right? Instinctual. It transcends, it goes beyond, ideologies and thoughts and, whatever it is. Like, we're humans. We're, instinctually we go in packs, we have families, we have cliques, we have things, and like, oh, now we can't do that and we shouldn't be doing that, and it's like, okay, like, how do we feel close to each other? The same way Zoom just went, like that, and everyone's using Zoom and we're all trying to feel closer to each other. Everyone's having Zoom parties and everyone's, drinking and this and that, and I don't know, we crave a human connection,
right?
And or something that, brings us to a little more of a, I don't know, it's almost like we're starting to feel a little less human because we're so locked in all the time.
Sure.
And I feel like a lot of technologies and a lot of resources are coming up to counter these feelings.
And there's still a number of opportunities I want to take to still meet up with, my buddies. But at the same time, the reason why I started this podcast is like 7 different reasons. Take advantage of this downtime. Take advantage of this virtual telework thing. I know there's a lot of other creatives and artists and folks like you and me. I got a whole bunch of people, lined up on the podcast. They want to reach out and they want to talk about their old stuff and what they're working on now and what their next agenda is. They want to talk about that. They want to connect with somebody. But also I want to still produce. I want to produce something. And then it's me wanting to reach out. It's me wanting to connect. But it's also, I know you want to promote your stuff, but I know I want to promote my stuff too. So it's like a cohabitated of promotion, of connecting, of talking, of sharing, still being creative, not being bored. I mean, shit, what else were you? I mean, I know you have been productive, but there's a lot of other folks that have not been as productive as we are. And I just tell them, like, what else you got going on? So, come on the show and share your old stuff, share your new stuff. But like during June, during July, during August, what do you got going on? Come on the show and talk for an hour or two, anywhere between an hour and 2 hours. But yeah, exactly. It's like, we do want to connect, but there's, as we start to progress, there's going to be this hybrid.
Yes.
And I mean, it's like I said, there's going to be this sliding scale. And I think the new normal is just going to be anywhere from like fully virtual to fully in person on location. But there's always going to be there's always going to be, now with everything that we developed, there's always going to, now we have like this sliding scale of how to like bridge.
Exactly. And I guess it makes sense, right? Because now we're like, okay, we spend so much time in front of computers and not around people, that social media becomes important, right? It's how we feel close. It's how we feel connected with people, and then you have, these meetings, on Zoom, Skype, or whatever it is. Okay, other ways of feeling connected with people. Take it another step, video games. Start calling your friends, everyone's getting on.
People have been playing video games online with each other for years, for decades.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And now more so than ever. Yeah. It's just like, cool. Now people are feeling connected there because, well, they can either play together or they can also play and have a conversation at the same time, and do it all online, and so, and then there's, another cutting edge thing. I have a friend of mine who's great engineer who was a teacher of mine like 13 years ago or 12 years ago. And now he's got a company called Mosh Pit. And what they are doing is they're doing immersive experiences for shows, or that's one of the things they're doing, I think, for like concerts, right? So where you can go see a concert online and you're an audience member, but you're like first person audience member or third person audience member, right?
Mhm.
And you can interact with other concert goers who are at the same concert who have their own little avatars there.
Mhm.
So now you can go see a show that is live performance there that is either, that's happening, right? And then you can also interact with a crowd, that you can know them or you can not know them, or maybe it's an AI.
Right.
And so that's also what they're implementing too. They're implementing AIs that behave as closely as people would at a
Hey,
show.
listen, like I've been playing VR games, with a couple of buddies of mine.
Yeah.
And they're online, and my buddy built like this 2-person huge VR, stadium in his basement. And so you got the goggles and you got the little controllers.
Yeah.
And before the quarantine, I would go over his house like once a week and do like VR games for like hours upon hours. But even then, the games were online. You could play with other folks in these VR games online.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like you were talking about, like an immersive experience. And like I was saying, like this hybrid experience, there's gadgets you can get. So if you're going to play these first person shoot 'em up games, you start off with these basic controllers, but then you could buy like gear, like almost like this skeletal looking, it looks like a machine gun or it looks like a pistol that you put the controller in. And physically it feels like a pistol, but then in the VR with the goggles, you got the VR pistol and you're doing all this stuff. Or you can have a sword. You can actually have a physical sword, but when you put on the goggles and you kind of like slide the controller into the sword, and it's like a foam plastic, light, harmless toy sword. But in the game, it's the sword that you're like slicing up orcs and vampires or whatever with,
Oh,
and,
that sounds awesome.
and so there's that hybrid experience. It's immersive because there's this physical thing you're holding on that does adapt to the goggles and to the senses that you have in the room to then build that into the VR experience. And like with the and again, the concerts, there was a game we were playing where we were just watching movies in this VR room with folks, all over the US. And we were sitting in there, you got a little headset, you got a little mic, but we're watching movies and we're just joking around watching these movies. And it's a fun experience,
It's great.
And so there's all these,
you're watching a screen. You're watching yourself on the screen, watching a screen. It's
well, no, like we were watching an Avengers movie in a virtual
VR,
theater.
exactly. Yeah.
But then I looked to the right, my buddy in California, and I looked to the left, my buddy in Virginia, but we're all watching the same movie.
What do you use for VR? Are you using the Oculus? Or?
That was Oculus. Yeah.
Oculus?
My buddy had so that's in my buddy's basement. And I haven't been to his house, in like 6-8 months, so I'm thinking of maybe like getting Google Cardboard or something so I can, watch a movie with him in the VR room and whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, like there's definitely gonna be this ultra hybrid immersed VR, AR, altered reality. Amazon had altered reality on the Amazon app. If you want to shop for something, you could take your camera on your phone and you could, film your kitchen, and then they would do altered reality and put appliances right in your kitchen. Wow. How does that look? You want to buy it? You got you got AR, you got VR, you've got, Zoom, you've got streaming. And then there's just that whole hybrid.
It's here to stay. It's not like, it's unlike, late 80s, early 90s when, virtual reality and 3D tried
pad
to
and pencil,
make something happen, and it's like, it didn't really work, just our technical capabilities and technological capabilities just weren't there.
But then again, that's where the failures come in.
Exactly.
You fail and you try again, and then
it's made us stronger, because then now we realize, like, okay, if we want VR to succeed and not be what it happened earlier, it needs to be accessible and economically accessible, physically accessible, reasonably and it's got to be
Economical.
Yeah, we said that, economically accessible, physically
Oh, yeah.
accessible, right? And then and it has to be simple,
Compact,
and
lightweight,
compact, simple, exactly,
fast.
lightweight. It can't be full of cables, right? I mean, and it can't be like we had like 3 freaking cables hanging from you, and if you walk like 2 feet in one way, it's like you just yanked it. Great,
Yep.
you just broke like $2,000 worth of gear. No, it should be like So I guess I feel like that's the battle right now. It's like, okay, who can give you the most experience while making it the most efficiently possible, for your wallet, and for the experience itself, right?
Yeah.
So whoever can achieve essentially, like, I feel like whoever can achieve the virtual reality experience without a headset, that's the guy that's gonna win. That's gonna be the DVD versus Betamax, eventually. There's gonna be one guy that's gonna be like, hey, we figured it out.
Yeah,
we figured it out.
And
here it is. Like, even if you can have virtual reality with the concept of a Google Glass,
yep,
you figured it out.
Yeah, just some lightweight sunglasses, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi. I mean, listen, the Wright brothers crashed over and over again.
Yes,
I think one of them like broke his back and he had to be in traction or something. I don't know the definitive history of the Wright brothers, but I know what I do know for a fact is they crashed and they crashed and they crashed and then they flew. And that's what VR, that's what 3D's been, that's what VR has been, that's what computers were.
That was the plan, that was the design that killed all other designs.
Smartphones, that's what smartphones were. I mean, wasn't it like 4 years ago the droids were blowing up? Like physically, like catching on fire and blowing up.
Yeah, I think it was like the galaxies or
the galaxies
like or something like that.
The galaxies were popping.
Yeah.
Catching on fire. And they made a mistake, pulled them back, recalled, refunds, lawsuits, paid settlements, shot out another one. We learned from that mistakes. These things happen. And like, apparently the galaxies are like, nothing's going to be the iPhone, but I think galaxies are second now, if not something else. But is constant competition. iPhone's clearly always going to be tops, but the iPhone's learning from Galaxy's mistakes, and Oculus is learning from what was that? What was the other company? But anyway,
everyone's kind of picking up from other people's mistakes,
exactly,
improving and everything,
and that's been a thing. That's been a big thing for me as far as filmmaking, as far as life, as far as parenting, as far as just life in general. Don't only learn from your mistakes, learn from others too.
Yes.
Well, Glenn, why don't you do this? Because Joe Bob did it. I'm not doing that. Yeah. Joe Bob always did that thing. You remember he kept getting screwed over. I'm always going to order an Uber if I'm drinking.
Yeah.
Always going to order an Uber.
Always.
but you never got a DUI. I know.
Because
I always order an Uber. Because Joe would never order an Uber. He didn't want to leave his car at the place, so he drove and he got a DUI.
Yeah.
Because Joe Bob didn't want to because Joe Bob's too cheap. I'd rather.
He didn't want to pay $15 for overnight parking, so now he's got to pay $10,000.
Got to go back and get your car the next morning. Well, I always ordered Uber from and then back, to and back.
Exactly.
And it's like you learn from other people's mistakes.
Sure.
Yeah, but well, going off of that, what would be a last bit of advice, last point or two for the viewers?
Oh man, I would say advice. Okay. I would say place your happiness and your well-being in front of money. And if I feel like when you're happy with who you are and with what you do, in a grand thing, right? In a broad sense, right? Not what you do with your life, but with what you do, with like, well, what you do with your life, like, okay, you're comfortable with if you like who you are, and if you like what you do, and what you represent to yourself, you'll be the richest man in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and money, you won't need money to feel rich. You know, I used to teach for a while, and I would tell my students, you know, it's like, you know, listen, you're just trying to get into entertainment, you know, sound to be more specific, you know, chances are, like, I mean, I can't tell you what's going to happen in your life, you know, but I'll tell you from my own is that I may not make a lot of money, but I'm the richest man in the world because I get to wake up, I get to do what I love, I get to be with a person that I love, you know, I get to be in projects that I get to choose, you know, and I chose this life, you know, and well, I guess on one side I was blessed to have that choice, right? But you know, if I feel like because I get to do what I love and because I chose to do it and actively pursued it, yes, times can be tough, you know, but I'm the richest man in the world. So it's always good to like not get caught up in the money game.
Yeah.
Don't get caught up, you know, in the social pressure game. Don't get caught up, you know, in social medias, and watch out, pick your battles and watch the things you get caught up on, you know,
Yeah.
and think what of these things make to my personal happiness. And I feel like that's such a big part. I don't know. To me, it feels like such a big part of the game in a way, you know. I don't know if that's really the kind of advice you're hoping to get.
No,
but
no, exactly. No, it's fantastic. And you know, I'll agree with you, and I'll admit I've said, do what you love. I've probably said that in every other episode of this podcast. That's been like my kind of closing advice too, is that and you mentioned, you know, don't get sucked into like the social media game, and I've had
it's,
you know,
digital peer pressure at the end.
yeah, and I've had colleagues say like, listen, these projects ain't getting the hits, and I'm like, they're getting hits though, and we need to do a better job of promoting. But I like doing this. You know, I'm not going to do a podcast about finance. I could give two shits about finance. I'm not going to do a podcast about, you know, Game of Thrones because I don't watch this freaking show. But if I do a podcast with fellow filmmakers on a general thing, each episode might touch upon, you know, Marvel movies, DC movies, sound editing, acting, directing, might touch upon politics. We talked a little bit about politics and military service it within, you know, an episode, you know, but generally I'm just broadcasting, me jumping on Zoom, talking to a fellow filmmaker, fellow artist, fellow entrepreneur, fellow actor, and just shooting the shit. You know, how this past 6 months kind of sucked. I mean, eventually, or how this past 6 months have been great. But you know, as far as the podcast goes, if the podcast is going to pick up, I know it. But the thing is, like, oh, the hits. Okay, let's just quit after 5 eps then.
Yeah, no,
you know, like
exactly. It's like working out. You know, your body will get better, and will get better every day. But you have to do it every day.
Yep.
You know, it's the same way. You know, the body works very much the same as the mind. You know, and if you want results, you got to be diligent. You got to be perseverant. And what's this other word I'm looking for?
Persistent.
Persistent. Yeah, I guess so. Persistent. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but it's
disciplined.
Yeah. You know, and
because listen, hard work is going to beat talent every single time.
Every time.
You're not going to get your bachelor's degree in a week. You gotta. What's the program? 4 years. It took me 5.5.
Separates the one-hit wonders from the actual, you know, successful.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
Oh, cool. It's like you've actually prepared for this. You like this so much that you've actually taken appropriate measures to protect the thing that you love doing, you know?
Right. You know, like intermittent, like me and the wife were doing intermittent fasting, and we were working out this entire quarantine, and she goes, I'm seeing some results, but man, and I'm like, okay, so we've been doing this for how long? A month. All right. And you saw some results. Yep. All right. So multiply it by 2 and you're going to see more results. Multiply by 2. So in 2 months, I'll see some results. Yes. In 2 months, oh, well, I'm seeing some results. Multiply it by 2. 4 months. And the next thing you know, a year goes by, shredded, jacked, ripped, never healthier. That's what it takes.
Yeah. And then you go back, like, where were you 2 months ago? Where were you 4 months ago? Where were you 8 months ago?
But if you put that discipline, it might not even be a year. In a month, jacked and shredded. But you got to put in that discipline. You got to trick the mind and you got to trick the mind. The mind will trick the body, but you have to trick the mind, and you have to you got to like do this crazy kind of mental calculation. Okay, we've been doing this for a month, lost a pound, starting to see some muscle growth. Multiply it by 2. 2 months later, lost a couple pounds, starting to see more muscle growth. Okay, multiply it by 2. 4 months later, jacked and shredded. Out of nowhere.
Yeah. And because like 3-4 months is like what it takes to see the actual results a lot of times, you know.
Who knows? Who cares? Go find that mental trick, that mental math.
Find
like,
that switch.
That switch.
Yeah, it's almost like a mantra for a lot of people. It's like they resort to like a mantra, you know. It's like, okay, cool. This mantra that's going to keep me pushing forward, you know. But I guess that's also a thing, right? Because mental instability, you know, and I don't mean it as a negative thing, although it's, you know, can have negative impacts, but mental instability has been kind of like a common thread, you know, since this quarantine started.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, it's been way since before that, right? But now, since all this is happening, it's like, oh, cool. Like now we have 350 million people getting cabin fever.
Yeah.
You know.
And you know, I'm not going to downplay, you know, a lot of this, a lot of the social and civil stuff that we've been going through in this nation. I'm not downplaying it. I'm not saying that there isn't something to be seeking justice for. I'm not saying that, but I think it's important for a lot of people to stop and think about, just for a second, stop and think about, is that there's been so many other elements creating a pressure cooker. Okay. Creating a pressure cooker, cabin fever, quarantine, boredom, and then something happens that needs justice. Something, I'm not saying we don't need justice. I'm not saying we don't need a change. We do need drastic change now. And now's the time. So be it. There's a whole slew of elements. You know, we kept ignoring problems. We kept pushing things off. We kept not accepting change. We kept not accepting that there needs to be a lot of what was it, the police, the police, defund the police. There should have been a lot of restructuring of so many departments, organizations, and things that were the cause of the problem, and everybody kept putting it off, taking their sweet ass time. And then quarantine hit, still a lot of problems. And it was a pressure cooker that just blew up. And so for those that are blowing up, I'm not saying that your agenda is wrong. I'm saying slow down, because there's a lot of elements that are pushing you.
It's a delicate situation.
It is a delicate situation, you know? And so I think it's important to sit back and look at what really is causing the pressure cooker and causing fires and causing, riots. But at the same time, it's a lot of, this should have been fucking solved 10 years ago, 5 years ago,
10 years ago, 5 years ago, 60 years ago, who knows? Depending on which issue you look at, you know,
what issue you're looking at,
and how passionate you are about the issue, you know.
But like you said, you know, just looking at oneself and we'll take advantage. I mean, my biggest point is taking advantage of the time that we have to focus on the light and focus on the positive. Well,
and you can still, have ideologies, and you can still have thoughts, you know, or you know, socio-political sides or whatever it is, and love yourself and pay attention to yourself and be relatively aware, and be more conscious, to make conscious decisions, and think about give room to our feelings, I think it's an important thing mentally, because that's how we avoid getting wrapped up in either depression or just bad situations in social media.
Yeah, absolutely,
or
absolutely.
so many other things too, right? But it's, when we pay a little bit of attention to ourselves, it's like eating, we feed our bodies, we also need to feed our minds. And I feel like it's important,
Yeah. Well, NICO STAUB, I can't thank you enough for coming on.
Thank you, man.
Celeste Audio, NICO, any last socials, links, plugs? I know probably not social media. You're cutting off social media.
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on social media. I'll be there. I can't guarantee you I'll accept a friend request. Mainly because I might not see it. Yeah, I mean, my website is celeste-audio.com. Currently under, because it was on Verb, the web hosting company, and from one day to the next, no notice, shut down, closed everyone's accounts. It was a big thing online and everything. So right now my website is down and I'm figuring out what to do with it. But you can find me on find my stuff, I don't know, Vimeo. Look for Celeste Audio, CELESTE Audio. And yeah.
Well, links in the description below to Nico's links and sites and his work. NICO STAUB, can't thank you enough. It was great talk, great ideas. I apologize about the time zone. Thanks so much for getting up at what, 8 in the morning? Like,
I got up around 7 anyways. So
great.
Someone's got to make coffee.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, NICO, thanks again. Definitely had to collaborate with you at some point, some way, somehow.
Definitely, man.
It'll be a lot easier nowadays with this whole hybrid new normal, man.
For sure. But, I look forward to future conversations.
Absolutely. Well, to my viewers, I hope I've earned the privilege of your time and viewership. I know my guest has. And until then, check it out.
All right.